2019 ushers in a new era of World Challenge competition in North America with an enhanced focus on Sprint X format races in the GT categories, with one exception. In the GT4 category, a separate national championship has been maintained for the historical sprint race format of one driver, 50-minute races, and that series begins this weekend on the fabulous Florida Sun Coast and the superb street circuit winding through the St. Petersburg downtown waterfront. Hi all and welcome to the Pirelli GT4 America Streets of St. Pete, presented by CrowdStrike. I'm Greg Creamer, delighted to be joined once again by Calvin Fish and Ryan Marine. And Cal, as always, there's so much to talk about for a season opening event, but one of the real jewels is simply this venue.
It's just become a massive event, Greg. It's the Long Beach of the East. It's a great jump-off point for our sprint season. I think the city and the fans totally embrace it. Massive crowds here, even on Friday. I raced here 33 years ago, and it's so cool to see this downtown area evolve to what it is today. And the circuit is a great fit for these GT4 machines. We've got 7 different manufacturers out there. How equal are they? Well, 6 different manufacturers represented in the top 6 positions on the grid today.
Yeah, and it's a good-looking field for sure. And one of the big stories, as you take a look at it, is it's a street circuit, but due to the continuing evolution of the GT4 homologation in the category and Pirelli not resting on its laurels for these Pirelli tires, it's fast. We have a new track record in qualifying.
It was really quick. Spencer Pumpelly laid down a brilliant lap for the TRG team, getting that pole position in his new Porsche Cayman. And you know Spencer, he's one of the best in the business. He knows the street circuits really well. A lot of experience there, but boy, oh boy, behind him on the grid, it is stacked.
Well, it's stacked, and the interesting thing to me is you take a look, last year it was a Camaro that swept the weekend in the hands of Lawson Aschenbach. In 2017 and 2016, it was Mustangs that swept the weekend. That's what's lined up behind Spencer.
Yes, so you're going to expect some good drives there coming through the pack from some of the others, but I think Spencer will try and get the front to the front here early, obviously from the pole position, but they've got to watch out for anyone making a move down on the inside. So we look at that turn 1 brakes area, that taxiway, those painted stripes there, really treacherous for the opening corners and the laps after that. Then you come through this little flowing section, quick shift up to 3rd gear in most of the cars, then really just trying to get back on the power, trying to squeeze it hard to come through here. They've opened up this area of the racetrack, turn 3 a little bit, so there's a better sight line for the drivers as they then go on that straight shot down towards turn 4, which is really crucial.
And it's very tight. There are those who will maybe try and force the issues on occasion here to try and make a pass.
They will. It's a good opportunity down into this brake zone we're looking at. The cars will be coming towards us and then make that right-hand turn, which is turn 4. Then very technical through here. If you're under pressure, all you need to focus on is hitting your marks. Don't worry about closing the door. There's nowhere to go here, even though someone may try to force it and create a little bit of argy-bargy. But real technical section. Then you got to get really set up for this next corner coming up. Coming into turn 9, that sets up that speed down that long back straightaway. Here's 8. Coming into turn 9, another right-hander, and getting off of there through the very fast kink. It's flat out it's not easy, but then you come down into the brake zone for turn 10. You see the curve start to revolve here through 10, 11, and 12. So certainly the cars that have got some compliancy with the suspension setup will try and use those without abusing the track limits, which really are only in effect when you get through turn 11 and 12. Try not to drag any dirt onto the racetrack there.
And that quick 11, and here's 12. This section of track, you flow through at a great speed. You've got to get it turned and woed down coming into this corner, one of the more important turns on the track.
Yeah, and you tend to diamond that, so you go in with sort of like an early apex, let the car drift up to the middle without opening the door for someone who's behind you, and then really keying on getting the hand straight, getting on the power early down that long front straightaway, and then just looking in those side view mirrors, making sure no one's making a move down to the inside.
And one of the key things is here, this front straight, the pit straight, is a taxiway. It's extremely wide. It's very enticing. If you get pinched, though, coming down to the inside and you catch the leading edge of that curb, it will pitch you either across the track or into other cars. You've got to be careful, and this is what we're talking about. I mean, this place just continues to get more and more beautiful.
It really is. It's got such peace and serenity right now, but as soon as these engines fire, it's going to be a street fight out there this afternoon.
Oh, yeah. Some fabulous restaurants, great hotels, the Albert Whitted Airport, that pink building in the back, the legendary Vinoy. I mean, this place is awfully good, and we are closing in on the command to get this one going. Again, this is single driver sprint format, so it's 50-minute races. 2 classes, the Pro and the Am category, will be running together, and we'll introduce you to the drivers and how they will line up here in just a minute. But word is we are just about to get this one underway. That's maybe the best seat in the house, on the boat, out in the bay. And the command has been given. The engine springing to life. 20 machines in the GT4 category. Pros, AMs, and some of those AMs very quick indeed. And getting set for the opening round of the Sprint Championship for 2019. We talked about Spencer Pumpelly. That's the Racers Group. Porsche 718 Cayman, the new Porsche Cayman. He put on pole almost 4/10 quicker than Gabriel Piana's lap record from last year in the older version Cayman. And that blue machine, Spencer said it's got a little bit more low-end grunt. It's a lot more responsive now. Coming out of corners, it's showing.
It really has. I mean, it's a beautiful piece that Porsche have come out with this year with the new Cayman. Got about 40 more horsepower. Big changes to the front suspension and stuff like that, but certainly has been very quick here all weekend long. But expect Jay Buford starting alongside him in that Ford Mustang GT4. He'll be a factor. He's got nothing to lose, Greg. He's going to go for victories. He's really not a full season contender, not going to do a full campaign, so you know he's just here to do one thing, and that's win.
And you can see the grid crawling across the top of the screen, so you can find your favorite driver, get ready to go. Buford in the white Mustang with the blue stripes. Behind him is Gar Robinson, who's been very impressive in the 74 Ranch Resort. Robinson Racing Chevrolet Camaro. Said did a lot of testing in the offseason. He said just to get me familiar with these tires and to feel them a little bit. Then they ended up getting a different tire, a taller tire, and Shane Lewis has talked about that's changed the gearings. We had to kind of start from scratch again.
Yeah, it's amazing. You can't go in and sort of like adjust individually each gear ratio, so when you change the rear tire, that changes the overall gearing set, and so sometimes you'll find a corner that you may have had the perfect gear match for, suddenly it's not working, as too high or too low. So they've got it figured out. Gar, a great qualifying performance. His teammate Shane Lewis is up at the sharp end as well, but unfortunately was a little bit underweight after qualifying, so he got pushed to the back.
Now, one of the big stories to look at here is as these cars come at you, fifth car in line, it is a gray, and here's the catch, Black Dog Speed Shop McLaren. Michael Cooper and Tony Gables right there in McLaren's this year, Cal.
That's crazy. I mean, we just associate that Black Dog Speed Shop team with GM product, but made a big move in the offseason. Michael Cooper got affiliated with McLaren. He went to the team and said, listen, I can bring them to the table, and they made a big switch. So not a lot of test time right now, and I expect them to get a little bit sharper as this season progresses.
We're going to be having 2 formation laps and 1 more pace lap before we get to green flag racing. They're the KTM Crossbow and Nikolai Elgahanian. Interesting for him, this is his first ever street circuit. He had an overall win in the GTS Sprint X category last year. He's very quick. This is an intimidating place.
It is, but he's a really nice young man. You know, came out onto our scene in a big way with that pole position at Lime Rock middle of last season. It's like, where did he come from? And since that time, they've been adjusting that car. They've gone to the later configuration towards the latter part of last year. So he'll be a factor here. I mean, it's a tiny little car. It should be very nimble around these street corners.
Generally, as the race gets longer into its run, that car, relative to the others, gets faster and faster. Big story, the car behind him, the name Andretti, Jared Andretti, moving up to the TCR category where he ran last year to GT4, and at the opening round of the Sprint Championship, puts that McLaren on pole in the AM class.
Yeah, and with Andretti Autosport, so that's big as well. And they got Robin Pemberton of NASCAR fame in decades past as leading the charge there. So he's on the AM pole. He's the first AM in terms of qualifying here earlier in the day. So coming off a nice victory with Carl Thompson in the Sprint X rounds at COTA, so he's had a very impressive start to his season with this new jumping up from the TCR class last year.
And behind him in that red, white, blue, star-spangled Panos, running in tribute for Dr. Don Panos, who sadly passed away last year, running in his famous colors. You saw it on the old LMP1 Roadster at Le Mans over the years. Preston Calvert, in qualifying, the last 2 laps went from 5th to 3rd, then in the last lap went from 3rd to 2nd in that Panos. A great qualifying run for him. And then one of the winners, and a big winner, in the opening round of the Sprint X Series at COTA, Alan Brynjolfsson in that Volt Lighting, that brilliant yellow machine. Solid qualifying run here as he's in single driver format up in 3rd.
Yeah, he's doing such a great job, has really matured a lot. He's relatively early in his racing career, very successful businessman, lives here locally, so he knows the racetrack area well, but doesn't know the racetrack. First laps were here yesterday, kept it clean. I expect a great run from him today in the Volt Racing Porsche Cayman.
All right, pace car is going to make its way down into pit lane. Field under the control of Spencer Pumpelly, Jade Buford alongside that Porsche in the Mustang, and we are looking for that green flag to start the 2019 GT4 Pirelli America Sprint season. We are racing. Big move there by Brynjolfsson, but up front, be interesting to see whether Buford in the V8 Mustang is going to be able to outmuscle Blancpain down into turn one. Can't get it done.
He gets to his
Might
shoulder,
work
though.
the
He's going to look
outside.
for it. Will Spencer pinch him off? No, they're side by side through two. This is going to be really tight when they get to turn three. Looks like Buford has got it. As I said, he'd be aggressive, nothing to lose.
What a start by him, and what a start by Brynjolfsson as Andretti started to defend on Calvert. Brynjolfsson going to the lead.
Cooper on the inside of Elgahanian there. Takes that position. Oh, Elgahanian all over the curb there to miss Michael. Nice evasive action. Good classy driving. That looked ugly for a moment.
Working now through that tricky section, turn 7, 8, as they come through now. And then the run through turn 9, and here's the blast down along the bayfront, along the marina. This kink is quick.
It is really quick. It's just about flat out. Talking to a number of these GT4 drivers here this weekend, but it is not easy. And what happens is this race will wear on, Greg. There'll be a lot of marbles accumulate on the entry and to the exit point, so that'll be a more difficult corner later in the going.
Yeah, you were saying the drivers say that those marbles bounce off those concrete walls right back onto the track. No real place for them to go. Boy, Elgahanian is attacking on Cooper. Michael Cooper in qualifying up in the turn 8 area, grazed the wall. He said we had to give it everything as we're just trying to find speed in this car. Look at the back of your shot. Brynjolfsson in that bright yellow Bolt lighting. Park Place Motorsports came in under attack. Andretti trying the outside, Cal. He might make this work.
That is a beautiful move if he can make it stick. Now he's on the dirty side of the racetrack. Brynjolfsson pretty aggressive there, takes the line away. Hard racing here in the opening laps.
Right behind them in the second of the G3 Ian Lacey Racing Mustangs is Ian Lacey, the number 12, filling in for Drew Stavely. He was scheduled to be here, but his wife is expecting, and Drew decided, you know, the better move here might just be staying home, just in case.
Well, there's nothing like being there for the birth of your child, particularly your first when they got a young boy on the way in the next week or so. So I think the orders were from the missus,
exactly.
You better stay home.
Yeah, and it may have been just through a raised eyebrow. Getting word from race control, the start was reviewed, no action taken, so we are racing, and Andretti certainly racing, trying once again to do something to get around Brynjolfsson here through turn 10.
Really impressed with Jarrett Andretti this year in terms of how he's taken to this GT4 machine. I think he's got a better group around him in terms of the experience level, at least, to guide him in the right direction. The car is good, and he's making some really good moves there as Alan runs a little bit wide. You kind of diamond that corner off, it just gets a little bit deep. These cars have ABS, but if you get into it too hard, it bleeds a lot of the brake pressure away. You see Ian James looking and probing on Gar Robbins for that second position right there.
And Andretti looking to the inside, straight lines down to the apex now, but realizes that Brynjolfsson might not see him. That was very gentlemanly, tiptoed around that apex, but now sweeps the outside, sort of returned the favor on what Brynjolfsson did with him. Andretti into the lead.
Well, I think Andretti said obviously the inside line for turn 2 is the way to go, so we switch positions there. Now Lacey gets a run on Allen as well and takes that position away. Ian Lacey filling in, as you said, he's the team owner and typically guides the ship, but has got the call to jump in this Ford Mustang. They didn't run this Coda in the Sprint X rounds, Greg. They ran their old Janettas from last year, so it's the first racing performance with these Ford Mustangs, but a great affiliation. They're based there in Utah Motorsport Campus area, and that's where the Ford Racing School is, which utilizes the Mustang platform.
Here's a look at the number 50 of Ian James talking to Ian. He said, you know, our car tends to be really good on tires, and he said we may not be the fastest over a lap, but near the end of these stints, we're generally very quick. He said that's what we're hoping for here. We need to just stay close.
Stay close, and just Ian has so much experience, has gone on a tear the last couple of seasons, but typically comes out in the middle of the year. He got 6 victories last year, but it all started happening in the summer, so that's when that team seems to come out good. But I know he's going after this Sprint Championship this year, and he needs to get big points immediately.
Right now, just a little hung up behind Gar Robinson as they head down through turn 1. Here's a good look at Ian, and yeah, he has been an absolute force in terms of wins and podiums as the season unfolds. In terms of championships, it's always been a little struggle. He's fallen behind, lost in a Huschenbach last year in the opening few rounds, just never could get back up to it, lost too many points, but certainly gave it a good push. And this is great to see Nikolai Elgahanian really putting the pressure right now on Mr. Cooper in that Black Dog McLaren.
He's super impressive, really impressive how he burst on our scene last season, and sort of like went off the boil a little bit towards the end of last year as they got used to new configurations with that crossbow, but Something that's cool this year, you see the number panel in that windshield. There's the Lumerank LED system, gives you the position that they're running, and also rotate to their acronym for their race's name as well. So great information for the fans by the side of the racetrack.
Yeah, now watch this, folks. Next car into your frame, there he is right behind Brynjolfsson in that bright yellow machine. That is Shane Lewis in the 74 Ranch Resort Camaro. Actually qualified 5th, Cal, ended up going through tech a little bit underweight. Rules are rules. He went to the back of the field. He is already moving his way up, knocking on the door of a top 10.
Yeah, he's already just inside that top 10. I think he got by Calvert on that last lap, so it's a brilliant run here for Shane Lewis. He used to do a little bit of rodeo riding, and he's not afraid to get up on the wheel here as well. Dives down the inside, probably hard into the ABS there. Nice clean move from someone who has a ton of experience.
And you know Mike Johnson on the wall on that Park Place pit box to Alan Brynjolfsson saying, that's not for class position. He's quick, let him go, don't worry about it. You're battling for your own class.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very important to keep the big picture in mind when you're going for a full championship season like Alan is. Just really think about things. Don't get too aggressive here.
Alan letting him through, but he's trying to stay right with him, which I think is a great ploy. If you can learn a little bit from somebody like Shane Lewis, and you've got that carrot out in front of you, you might be able to open up that margin back to that red, white, and blue Panos of Preston Calvert.
Just really impressed what Alan has done, Brynjolfsson, with the guidance of Trent Hidman, who's one of the quicker guys in the sport right now. Young man just really gives him great guidance and has really disciplined him. Alan had a lot of speed, was a bit of a wild man in the early days, but he really calmed things down.
Boy, Ian James just got what looked like a great run out of 14, got down to the inside of Robinson. Now it's a drag race, and it looks like Robinson, that Camaro, in the early going here, a little bit more motor as they head down the straight. Now they carry a bit more weight, and that's one of their concerns, is we're watching Jade Buford just check out at the front. He said, we've got to open up a gap because with the weight we carry because of the V8, we're a little harder on tires, a little harder on brakes. Car tends to fade just a little bit.
Yeah, and I was watching down in turn 1 area during the practice and qualifying runs, Greg, and to your point about tire conservation and tire degradation, ultimately we stay green for a long time, and Jade was really up on the wheel, and it looked like the car was a little bit on the loose side, so I'm curious to see if he backs up to Spencer Pumpelly if this stays green, because he's got to look after those rear tires running out front.
And again, James takes that little look in the battle for third. That is a fierce one here on the streets of St. Pete. There's Spencer Pumpelly in the Racers Group Porsche, the LaSalle Solutions Adobe Road Winery entry, on pole, but has just settled into a rhythm in second spot right now. Best race on the track in the Pro Division right here.
Yeah, this is great to see. Gar Robinson, they came onto the championship scene last year running AMG Mercedes, and quickly made a hard decision to switch mid-season, which is not an easy thing to do. They really felt with this GM chassis is a lot closer to their workshop in Detroit. They can really work with the team there in terms of getting the best out of the race car, and it's really paid dividends now because they've done a ton of testing in the off-season, and this is great to see Gar running at the sharp end in the opening round of the championship.
Yeah, he told me earlier, he said, I just needed some laps to get a real feel for these tires. He said, now I've got a much better understanding. I can feel it when they start to go off a little bit. Better than I was, and see, he's a championship winner in Trans Am racing, so he's got speed. It's just a matter of getting familiar with the new format and new tires. GT4 different than a Trans Am type car.
Yeah, he's got amazing natural talent, and I think once he gets the confidence running at the sharp end of this field, I think we're going to see some big results from him as we see Michael Cooper there in that McLaren, keeping Al Gahanian just at bay right now. And I think for Michael, he's got so much experience. He's won at every level in World Challenge in terms of championships. So you see Gar there really up and all over those curbs there. Hopping the curb there in turn 12.
Aquilante, yes.
Yes, very much so. He used to float that front wheel. He didn't touch it. He just hitched it up for the ride.
Oh, nice move by Ian James.
Working the side draft, I think, a little bit there.
Yeah, he
might be trying to pack that front fender.
Well, he had to get the drive off that turn, and he did. Got to the inside.
Oh, gosh, so impressive on the brakes.
Really
I think
is.
Ian's like thinking, what have I got to do to put him away here? Problem for Ian is if he's got thoughts of a victory or getting up with Buford and Pumpelly, he's got to try and get by Gar as quickly as he can.
You never know. If he can get by, maybe he's actually got a faster car over a lap right now. But when you're behind that, you got to race the other person's speed until you can figure a way through.
Nice thing about these GT4 cars, unlike the GT3 machinery, that's a little bit more sensitive to the aero wash that's created from the car you're following closely. Talking to the drivers this weekend, they said you can really race these cars hard. You can be tucked right up underneath someone, like through this high-speed kink, and stay right close enough there to maybe think about a move into the next brake zone.
Again, hard on the brake zone at turn 10. Here's the other battle as Cooper trying to fend off El Gahanian. Now back to your AM leader, Jared Andretti, just doing an absolutely fabulous job right now in that Andretti Autosport machine. And again, number 12 behind him is a pro driver in Ian Lacey. So what that really means is Andretti right now has a sizable little lead in hand back to the number 7 of Brynjolfsson.
Yeah, he's in great shape and doing a really nice job. Looks like the car's working. Ian James, another move to the inside, but I tell you what, Gar Robinson recognized that he has an advantage there. He's just rolling a little bit more speed into the apex. Admittedly, Ian's on that inside line. I don't think there's a ton of grip there, so he's got the inside line, Greg, but the grip level isn't there that Gar can produce on the outside of the normal racing line for turn 1.
We talked about it at the top of the show, was that's really slippery where everybody's been running with all the IndyCar and all of the other action here. On that line's probably got some grip, but off it, not so much.
That's right, so I think that's what we're looking at right now, just the difficulty with the street circuit where the grip level is not consistent, where the rubber's been put down on that normal line. Gar just sticks it over there, gives Ian that inside line, recognizing I'm just going to take in a little bit deeper. But Ian's a canny driver, so much experience now, and he'll be thinking about where his next move's going to be.
He keeps sort of feinting to the left a little bit, coming out of the kink. He's trying, I think, to get Gar off his rhythm just a bit, and Gar so far not taking the bait.
He's got to be so patient here. Diamond that corner off, focus on getting the power down early, not lighting up the tires. Ian's able to just tighten that radius a little bit, and then he gets side by side, but Gar there is not trying to protect. What they said in the drivers' meeting is you cannot be reactive, you have to be proactive. So if he wants to take that inside line, he's got to do it early. He is now rethinking this. He said, okay, there's obviously more grip out there, a little bit wider. Can I focus on getting through this set of corners and maybe be in a position to make a move down into turn 4, the next coming corner right here?
There's that little bump. Gar staying a little bit farther to his left, willing to ride that bump just a little bit.
Like coming through Casino Square in Monaco.
Exactly. Well, it's fun just watching two drivers of this caliber and Ian James just playing the chess match. Where can I go? And here we go now. Brynjolfsson feeling the heat once again from Preston Calvert, and Tony Gaples having a really impressive run here right now as he sits in the AM category in a very competitive 4th. Oh, watch this here now. This is last lap. That's Brynjolfsson, Cal, defending.
He is, but look at Preston there. He's down on the inside. That's what we're talking about. The grip is just not there. Allen swings back underneath him. Just pinches him enough there. Preston gave it up wisely.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there could have been some contact.
Both of them running a little bit off the preferred line has allowed Gaples, as we said, to close it right up now and sits right on the 6 of these guys.
Oh, here we go. Ian James a little bit further alongside. He's got to take it in as deep as he possibly can. Uses the middle of the road. Keeps Gar hanging out to the outside. That was an experienced move right there. Ian James had been thinking about it. Got to the middle of the racetrack and just hung Gar out to dry there a little bit.
Boy, and you can see Ian working the wheel inside that thing. That was skating, but he knew exactly what he wanted to do with it. And now he moves up into 3rd spot. Now the question is, as you talked about, what kind of speed can he produce to try and close down what has now become about a 3-second margin to Pumpelly?
He is going to be clearing this lap traffic here. CJ Moses in the CrowdStrike Audi. Doesn't have the experience of the rest of the field, so great debut, but a tough racetrack to do it on. And it's hard to disappear here. Gets the flashing lights from Ian James, and this is a tough corner. This could hurt Gar Robinson's ability to stay with Ian.
Wasn't too bad, but Gar had to pinch the exit, didn't he? And that'll cost you, even if it's a tenth or two. It's crucial on a track like this.
For CJ Moses, that's a scary place to be, running the outside line in the marbles through 9A, that very high-speed kink.
Yeah, that CrowdStrike Amazon Web Services machine, tough place, as you said, to make a debut, but he really wanted to do the sprint-type racing this year, and has put together a good one. If you go back to this battle here, battle for second in the AM category, Calvert in the Panos, Brynjolfsson in the Porsche, Gaples in the McLaren.
Yeah, so Preston's come back at Allen here and got the move done. Really impressed how Preston has really improved his game over the last couple of seasons. I think he's found a great home here with the Panos Racing team. Stefan Pfeiffer, his engineer, is back this weekend. He wasn't at COTA. He had a commitment over in Europe last weekend, but he's back this weekend, and there's just a really, really good group of guys there, and girls for that matter.
This tells you how impressive a run Andretti is having here. He's holding off both Ian Lacey and Shane Lewis, who's one of the most experienced drivers in the field.
And this is going to be a big part of the learning curve for Jarrett. Now he's running with this sort of company. He's going to learn really quickly. He's the son of John Andretti, Aldo's son. But just that Andretti racing lineage is certainly being shown here this weekend.
It's mighty nice to be walking through a Pirelli GT4 America's Championship paddock and seeing John there and Pemberton and everybody you were talking about.
And great to see John looking pretty good. He's had a difficult time in his life with some health issues, but he's been battling hard, and he's really enjoying being at the racetrack, watching his son, and we wish him all the best in terms of a full recovery.
Yeah, it's good medicine being at the racetrack when that's what you are passionate about. Again, El Gahanian here trying to figure a way around Cooper in that Black Dog Speed Shop McLaren. And watching Cooper, obviously he's a McLaren factory driver, and he's got experience. And the one thing he said is that the McLaren loves long high-speed corners. He said the quicker transitions in a slow-speed section, he said that's where we struggled just a little bit. And of course, that's exactly where this crossbow excels. You can see the margin that Cooper was able to open up, and then Nikolai just starts gobbling them up as soon as you get into the twisty bits here.
Yeah, this is where this crossbow should really excel, through these tight technical sections. Really short wheelbase, so it makes it react very quickly. 4-second lead right now for Jade Buford up front. So maybe he wasn't showing all he had in qualifying, but certainly in race trim, this Mustang looks super strong.
Well, his fastest lap is a good 4/10 quicker than Pumpelli, but the last series of laps, they've both been in the 1:19.9s. Now, of course, as you said, that could be Buford at this stage with that margin, managing things just a little bit. But Spencer is going to be
the other way around.
Yeah, exactly.
Spencer's just running a pace that he knows that he can run. Remember here back in 2015 when Spencer came here with that Ford Mustang, he led and then his tires just went way off, and boy, did he rebound the next day. He learned a lot, and he knows how to protect his tires here on the streets of St. Pete.
Yeah, he made an absolutely stunning pass in the turn 5-6 area that generally is unheard of, but that's something that Pumpelli's capable of as we go back to this great little scrap. Again, for 5th overall in the pro category. And back here right now, here's that same story, Andretti. Well, I'll tell you, with the pressure he's getting from Lacey and Lewis, it is just pushing. Jared Andretti is throwing down some very impressive laps. Last lap, a 1:22.3, and you look at the guys, the margin
that was
built
tight.
up. Yeah.
El Gahanian having a big look down the inside in turn 4 on Michael Cooper. And to put it in perspective, I mean, he's in close proximity to Michael Cooper, a driver who has massive more experience in road racing than Jared did. And they're in similar cars, obviously, both running McLaren 570. And he's not that far behind, just a couple of corners behind, with a good nearly 20 minutes on the board in this race.
Yeah, and again, first ever street circuit race, so really doing a fabulous job here. And you can see the margin now at the top 6 have opened up. There's Andretti in that Window World. Again, Andretti Autosport, but Window World and Endurance Warranty. McLaren, a lot of great support on that program. Then Lacey and Lewis. And then back a bit now is Calvert, Brynjolfsson, and Gaples. And they're still in a really good battle for second in the AM category.
Like McLaren just stretches its legs a little bit. They say this is not the ideal circuit, even though at COTA they didn't have a massive advantage over anyone, in fact. But that is really its strengths: high speed, flowing corners, and at the end of a very long straight, it really starts to come into its own, which we don't have a lot of here. But Michael Cooper doing a great job. He'll be thinking about the big picture, not the start they were looking for. I'm sure they hope to come out of the box a little bit stronger in comparison to the rest of the competition. But how you win championships is on a day when you don't have the tools to get the win, you just maximize the result, as El Gahanian is really looking racy right now, looking for a way through.
And just looking at the monitors, Cooper's AM teammate, Tony Gaples, has gone around. Alan Brynjolfsson picked up 3rd in the AM category in that wonderful battle. That's some good stuff to be watching, too. And closing on them is Michael Dinan in the Flying Lizard Porsche number 21. closing on Brynjolfsson, Gaples, and Calvert. So that could become a 4-car scrap in short order. But it's pretty tough to just drop off this one. It's just watching this chess match is fascinating.
Well, for Michael Cooper's teammate and team owner, Tony Gaples, he's not the best qualifier, he'll admit it, but he always puts on a show on race day. 200-plus starts, starting his 20th year of World Challenge competition.
Yeah, one of the most experienced guys in the paddock, and just a tremendous supporter of this type of racing. There's a look at Preston Calvert sitting second in the AM category right now. And as Gaples made that pass on Brynjolfsson, getting through cost him a couple of seconds. So now Calvert has a little bit of breathing room. He's got a pretty big deficit right now to Andretti. Oh, who spins? And I wonder if there wasn't maybe a little touch. Oh, and Andretti just rolled it backward into that concrete barrier, Cal.
Yeah, a lot of steam emanating from there. That's a shame. It's a really nice run, and it's tricky down in that brake zone. People are getting different amounts of retardation down in that slippery zone over the taxi painted stripes. Let's take another look at it. Oh, I think Ian just got into the ABS, and what it does, if you get into the ABS, suddenly it bleeds off brake pressure. You're not slowing down. Unfortunately, Jared did not hit the brakes there before he hit the fence. Oh, he's got some bodywork torn up. Oh, there's a big oil cooler or something split on the back end.
Let go, yeah. Well, this is not good.
No, they need to get a fire truck out there because this could erupt here pretty quick.
And not a surprise, full course caution comes out immediately for the incident here of Jared Andretti. So the safety car will be coming out as we go under full course caution. Unfortunately, after that great run, Jared Andretti, little tap from Ian Lacy, and just enough to do the damage there, and then he kind of backed it into the wall. But I think you make a great point that, you know, the ABS isn't a panacea. It doesn't solve everything, and if you're just too fast, it, as you put it, it kind of goes numb, doesn't it?
It goes numb, yeah, and if there's nowhere for him to go, Ian literally run him over, but it was not intentional. I think maybe Jared had a little bit more braking ability, and he just stayed on line. Ian's in there very committed. He wasn't looking for a move, it didn't look like. He's still in the middle of the road. It wasn't like he was diving down to the inside and looking for the apex, but Jared was just had a lot more braking ability, and I think Ian just got into the ABS system, and that just bleeds off overall pressure, and suddenly there's nowhere for him to go.
There's the touch, and for some reason, Jared didn't jump on those brakes, get that car stopped for it, backed into one of those K-rails.
Yeah, I'm unsure whether the oil line or cooler being erupted is from the initial hit or whether it's from the concrete wall, but there you see the pool of oil, so it's going to take a little bit of cleanup even once we get the Andretti car off the racetrack.
Yeah, that initial hit, I mean, it was firm, but it wasn't really hard. I wonder, did it sever a brake line or something? And that he went to the brake and it had no pedal. There's a little bit of damage there to that right front of Lacy.
Yeah, he center punched it pretty good.
Yeah, he did. So under caution,
Lewis to jump up a couple of spots there and take advantage of the mishap.
And if Pompelli has been playing the waiting game and saving tires, 5.5 second margin is gone to Buford.
Yes, that's certainly going to be a big factor when we get back to racing here, and I think Spencer's going to be a lot more aggressive on this restart once we get to it. Ian James back in the mix. He was running lap times a little bit quicker than the leaders, so maybe showing his true potential with the Pano Savazano running in the third position right now.
And with Andretti's issues here, when we go back to green, Calvert in the 51 Panos, the Calvert Dynamics, Avezzano GT will be the leading in AM with Gaples right there, Brynjolfsson, Dynan, and Collinwood, trio of Porsches. In third, fourth, and fifth, Mark Clennon in the KPR. Premier Copiers, McLaren would be sitting in the sixth spot, the number 62. Pesic in the PF Racing Machine will be right up there as well. And then Jason Bell. Jason's had a little bit of an issue here during the race weekend on the very first session out. Ended up just tinking the barrier at the exit of turn 4. And he was trying to do a lead follow with CJ Moses to give CJ just an idea of the first couple laps to drive around. And they got split by a faster car, and Bell said, I didn't want to hold that guy up, so as I turned into 4, I gave it a little squirt on the throttle to try and get clear so he could get underneath me in 5, and it just snapped out on cold tires and kissed that barrier. So they're looking to get something done, and unfortunately the number 24 of Frank Gannett in that G3 racing Ian Lacey Racing Mustang. Been under the weather, possible flu that he's been fighting through as well. Look there at Jason Bell in the Global Motorsports Group entry that he is fielding, along with support from Highway Systems, Continental Benefits. And another guy, well, I was expecting to watch Marco Radicic come up through the pack in qualifying. He said his predictive was about 6/10 quicker than the lap he ran. He said, I got hung up in a little bit of traffic, but he has just been stymied for some reason here and has fallen off just a bit. Yeah, running the only BMW in the field, and he'd looked really good in practice and qualifying, was always just right around the top 10. So I'm sure he'll be a little frustrated. He's based here locally as well. A lot of local races in the field, ironically. And then number 22, the Precision Driving Tech entry. And he said the BMW said it's a little difficult on turn-in on these tight street circuits, but he's got great flow and can really, at that point, he said, I can pick the throttle up pretty early, get through some of these corners and really give it a bit of a run. So we'll see now with this caution if that's going to help him up. And then, of course, C.J. Moses and his debut here at the back of the field, who is just trying to gain a little bit of experience. And watch right now, as you look there's the number 11 of Tony Gaples, flashing 10 on that Luma rank. He's in 10th spot in the overall order. Tony said the biggest adjustments he's had to make from the Camaros that he's run for years to this McLaren is, he said, believe it or not, he said, it's visibility. He said the Camaro had a much more open greenhouse, and he said in that McLaren, he said sight lines are different, and he said my rearward visibility is just a little unnerving, especially with concrete walls around. He said I'm just going to have to make that adjustment. Looks like he has. He has, and big concern for Tony. You have to get out of the car within 7 seconds. He said a lot tighter cars. Kind of got the European fit. Do you know what I mean? Exactly. So that was a big concern for the team in ensuring that they made some adjustments to the belts and the net and everything, so he certainly passed that test ultimately. But yeah, totally different animal. And he said when he was testing a couple of weeks ago, his feet were getting cold. He doesn't have that big heater up front in form of an engine. Well, that's a really good point too, yeah. And it's just a different, obviously a mid-engine car has a very different feel to it. And talking to Michael Cooper, and he said, the McLaren, he said, it doesn't have the adjustability of some other cars, including the Camaro, on the sway bar. And he said, but you make one click on the dampers, and he said the McLaren, you feel it. It's real sensitive. He said, so once we figure it out, he said, we should be able to fine-tune that car incredibly well. Yeah, it's a really stiff chassis, carbon fiber chassis on that McLaren. So that's what you need. If you're going to make a change, you don't need the chassis basically taking over that adjustment. You need it to really work the suspension quarter, and that's what you get with a car like that. And when we go back to racing, you take a look here. Calvert, Gaples, Brynjolfsson, Dynan, Collingwood. That's your top 5 in AM, and they are going to be nobody in between them at this point that I'm aware of. That should be a superb battle here. And Mark Clennon, we've seen him show some awfully good speed in the past as well, so should be fun to watch. And Michael Dynan, not a lot of experience in racing, relative newcomer to it, but we have seen from him some really strong speed. Last year in a debut run, they just did one event. Now at Circuit of the Americas in that Flying Lizard Porsche, Michael Dynan was showing some pace. And again, it's all about putting the right people together. They got the Flying Lizard team led by Darren Law, the program manager. Of course, they got Jim Bell, who's a wizard of an engineer. They got Robbie Foley, a great young talent who's mentoring and helping Michael Dynan. So they're going to go places quickly, I think. And sitting in that 5th spot is Thomas Collingwood. Again, another driver, not a lot of experience. He's done a lot of Target Newfoundland racing, which is a whole different can of worms. He ran Pikes Peak last year, but he's done a lot of Porsche Club. It's called Trophy East competition, and has been impressive there. And got hooked up with BGB Motorsports. And how great is it to have John Tisi and that team over here in this paddock? A lot of experience over the years in other series, and after a little bit of a hiatus have come back and are running here. And Tom Collingwood showing that he knows how to get speed out of this Cayman, sitting there in 5th. That's a great run, really impressive. It's always fun to start the season, Greg, and just see these new team driver combinations. Some of the teams switching to a different brand, like G3, the Ian Lacey racing team, switching to the Mustang from the Ginetta. So it's always exciting to see how everything's going to shake out. Absolutely, that loop tackle design, Porsche from BGB, the new 718 Cayman. And haven't heard yet any word from race control as to when we might be expecting to go back to green flag racing, but we still have over 20 minutes of racing left on the clock, so we're going to have some time for this to turn into quite a show. Here's that battle that I'm going to be real interested in. That battle for the lead with all those cars stacked up, and they were really close in qualifying as well in that AM category at the sharp end of things. So it could be a lot of fun. And I continue to watch. Brynjolfsson. He continues to really open up and diamond that last corner to get a run onto the front straight, much more so than anybody else. The pace car is slowing them down just a little bit, Cal. Oftentimes that's an indication that race control thinks this lap maybe we could go, so it backs it down to make sure that they can get whatever they need to cleaned off of the track at this stage. We will keep an eye on it. It's Buford in that PF Racing Mustang GT4 heads down into turn number 4.
Thinking about this reset, you'd think, okay, that puts Spencer right on his tail, but it also does, if Buford has been really hard on his tires, gives them a chance to cool down a little bit and have a bit of a reset. So it works both ways. But
that's true.
And again, I think for Spencer Pumpelly, he's very smart. He's a great race car driver. He's super quick, but he'll know that Jake Buford is not doing this full season right now. However, you can always count on that. Suddenly someone gets a couple of victories, like they end up at the next race all of a sudden. You think, boy, I should have pushed harder to get by him in that early round of the championship. But right now, it's not anticipated Jake's going to be here for the full season. So Spencer will be thinking about that. Don't go getting too racy with the leader right now. Get solid points, maybe make some tweaks on that car if it's not quite right tonight, come back strong tomorrow.
It's a very good point. The Racers Group has made a complete commitment to this full season of racing in the LaSalle Solutions Adobe Road Winery and the Racing Series wines. Boy, talk about a great high-end line of wines that are award-winning here. And the Racers Group right there, that blue Porsche Cayman representing it around for the full season. It's great to know that.
Yeah, that racing collection looks pretty cool. I've tasted some of Kevin's nice stuff over the years, and he's successful at whatever he does. He gives everything 1,000,000%. The ultimate multitasker, and has a lot of exciting plans out in Petaluma.
It just opened up a new boutique for the winery, I think, on the waterfront there in Petaluma. So you're right, 100% all the time. And LaSalle Solutions, you see on the side of the car, they came on, what, about 3-4 years ago? And boy, they have been absolutely, it's a partnership as opposed to just a sponsorship. It really is.
Kevin works hard at every aspect of the game, and I think the business side is something he's been super successful with, in bringing partners on board, showcasing what the racing scene can provide for them. Good B2B operation, and he just delivers. You know, he gives good return on the investment, which is what it's all about.
There's a look at that little scrum of the top players in the AM category as we are getting ready, I hope, here to get back to green flag racing in relatively short order here. And all right, we get a report. Lights are out on the safety car, so we should be going back to racing this time by, and it'll probably be about 15 minutes of racing left to go, and that can offer up plenty of opportunity for fireworks.
Lots of time on the clock. It's a ton of racing here to get through before we see the checkered flags here this afternoon. And who's going to have the strength right now? Look at Ian James just backing off from those two leaders a little bit. What will he have in his bag of tricks here as we go back to green?
And Buford letting that pace car get well clear, the safety car, I should say, well clear, so that when it hits pit lane, he can start to roll into the throttle and try and put the torque of that big V8 to good use. Here we go. Safety vehicle is in field under the control of Buford. Slows him down just a little bit. Green flag flies. We are back at it. And you can't even see Pumpelly behind that Mustang. It's that close. James down to the inside, and Pumpelly now trying to swing out, Cal. Over under.
Yes! Oh, Buford has the bail. He just got it locked up there. Had that inside line. No grip. Oh, no. Shane Lewis has gone around in the second of the round 74 machines. Sometimes you just see that problem up ahead. Everyone stacks up. Oh, big crash there for Al Kahanian. Big crash coming through turn 3.
That quick little left-right transition, yeah, and Elga, yeah, that's big into the wall in that KTM crossbow. And there's a recovering Buford and Lewis. But we go right back to a full course caution.
I bet Buford had never been down there, because you remember the early start, he was on the outside and just totally different grip level. Down on the inside, he suddenly could sense that he wasn't going to slow down enough, had to bail, otherwise he's going to hit the concrete wall on the exit. And this is a shame, because it was a great run for Nikolai, and that's a lot of damage. It'd be tough for those guys to get that car fixed up for tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Nikolai, with the moment for Buford, that would have put him in the top 5, and the way he was running with Cooper, could have been up knocking on the door for the podium. Good news there, seeing he himself open up that roof line and just the whole thing comes up in those KTMs. That's good to see.
Tricky is he's kind of pinned against the wall there a little bit, but looks like he's now getting out of the roll cage, so hopefully he's okay. We didn't see sometimes a lot of bodywork damage. May not indicate exactly the severity of the hit, but he hit. Oh boy, that's a big one.
That'll tell you right there.
That's a key indicator. That's got to be pushed back in, I think.
It's a, what are they, 8,000-pound K rail? So, boy, and look at the angle.
See the tires.
Yeah, wow. Something happened. I wonder if
he just got clipped and turned.
Okay, watch this now. We're getting a report he may have had an issue with
his wheels off.
I wonder, did he catch the inside at turn 2?
I wonder if he clipped and just literally ripped the wheel out. So strange that he'd been running fine for this amount of time into a race and suddenly have a wheel come loose. That, sure if there was some contact coming through the series of corners, kind of weaves and bobs around. He's looking pretty gingerly getting out of there. That was a big, big hit.
Yeah, when that wheel came off, I mean, he just speared. It was.
It's a scary one. Now he's
pretty acute angle into that wall. Yeah, he is. I almost wonder if coming through 2, if he didn't, and we've seen it before, you kiss that inside wall at turn 2.
I've done it. I didn't. The track configuration was different, but right in that section is exactly where I hit. I glanced the left side going through there, and suddenly broke a wheel and cut down a tire in an Atlantic car and had a massive crash here back in 1986.
And this is going to be a substantial cleanup here. Have to see. Most importantly is he's out and walking. That is great to see. You said obviously he's going to feel that one, but good to see him walking under his own power at this stage.
This is not a big team though, so depending on the amount of damage, we're talking about not making it tomorrow. We just hope that doesn't affect his season-long plans.
Now in walking the paddock, I did see there is another crossbow that they have sitting there, so I don't know whether that's used as a spare car or show car, and if it's equipped right, but it would mean he'd have to start at the back, obviously, but at least he'd be able to get out and race.
Key is going to be how he's feeling as well.
Very good point. Sometimes it takes a day for you to realize just how sore you are.
They do some protocol now where they do some testing when you're basically 100% fit. When you have a crash, you go through that and they analyze whether you in fact are good to race the next day. Preston Calvo, who's racing in this event, was really the push behind all of that in terms of making sure that guys are ready to race after a big crash.
Yeah, and they've adopted now the Sean Edwards test, which is proven to be very, very solid at determining if you're capable of it. So that's good news. All right, now let's see if there's another look we might have. Here's what we saw the first time. There he comes, wheel already off.
Yeah, so it wasn't a head-on, so it's kind of a glance, but it's into the driver's side.
Yeah.
I've been there. It's hard.
Yep. And the interesting thing, you see all those parts coming off the car. It looks pretty terrible, but keep in mind that every part that flies at that car takes a little energy with it. So we go back, take another look at this restart, and watch Buford here.
Just down to the inside now. He's hard on the brakes. You just see across that painted stripe. He just doesn't slow it down, has to give it up, because right as he needs turning, he's on that main white stripe that he just kind of continues on. And Pompelli would have recognized that, just sat out there ready to do the undercut on him. James, Jar Robinson, there's the quick spin by Shane Lewis. Al Gahanian is ahead of the pack that we're looking at right now, and he then has a moment just a corner further forward.
You know what? Buford's bailing right there. That was a sign of real experience. He realized what was happening, realized if I try and make this corner, I'll probably going to wall it. Bailed on it, went straight. We have a red flag coming out, and the clock has stopped. And in the drivers' meetings, the race directors were talking about, we have the opportunity with this schedule to maybe be able to stop the clock if we have a red flag. So we may have a good 10 minutes of racing when we get back to it. Red flag flies here at the Pirelli GT4 Americas, the streets of St. Pete, presented by CrowdStrike after the incident by Nikolai Elgahanian and the Marco Polo Motorsports Muellerized KTM crossbow. And we are under a red flag. The field making its way around. They will be brought down into pit lane and just basically stopped and staged. So when this cleanup is complete, they can roll right back out again in the same order they were running and come around and get back to racing. So you hate to see it happen, but at least they've got this protocol in place to preserve a little bit of racing in this one, Cal.
Looks like the clock has reset to maybe the previous lap, too.
Which would make sense because that's the order that they line them up in. If there's any, and if anything changed after the incident, they would go back to the last completed lap.
What does that do? Does that put Buford back at the front?
Well, that's an interesting point. It's a very interesting point. Okay, we may have found another angle for it. Watch this.
Oh, it just lets go. See the wheel nut come off.
Yes.
That is so bizarre after so much running. You expect that within a lap or two of the start.
And I mean, obviously we weren't on him for the entirety of the race to that point, but never saw any contact that may have broken anything.
No, we assumed that it brushed the wall right here, but the wheel was already gone. Then he's correcting. You can see him arms and elbows inside the cockpit, try to keep it all together, but just nowhere to go.
And then it just snapped the other way, obviously, and into the wall he went. So the field making its way down and staging in the fast lane here in pit lane. And you know, Cal, over the years, obviously, you get red flags like this. You can't touch the cars. They're under what they call parc fermé conditions, which means you cannot do any work on the cars, not even changing tire pressures, anything like that. The drivers, they can open a door, try and get a little air inside there, but that's really about it. But obviously, as opposed to running under caution laps, these Pirelli P0s just sit and get cooler and cooler and cooler, and of course that means they lose pressure, and that affects setup.
Absolutely, it's a big deal, that tire pressure deal, and how the car's working. So lots to be thinking about here, and I'm just curious as to what will happen here with the running order, because if they do revert back for a full lap,
yeah,
if it could have caught the break of the century.
Yeah, I have to see what the call is on that, but we have seen similar things. I seem to remember somebody winning that was upside down at the finish, before the finish at Macau one year in the GT race, and went back to the previous lap. So he was still out front, so we'll have to see exactly how it's played out. Regardless, when we go back to racing, I think this battle, assuming Buford doesn't get back to the front, if he does, he certainly would be added to the mix here. But Pompelli, James, and Robinson and Cooper, that's going to be something to watch.
Lots of experience kind of around Gar Robinson. He's no rookie in terms of the big scheme of things. Has several years of racing now under his belt, including a podium run at the 24 Hours of Daytona, Trans Am titles to his name. But he's in the big leagues there with Pompelli, James, and Michael Cooper right around him. All of this action is promoted Ian Lacey up to the 5th position. Remember, he kind of center punched Jared Andretti, so I'm not sure if he's going to get any sort of penalty or review on that one. But right now he sits there in 5th. And what a run for Preston Calvert.
Oh,
another Panos up in the top 6.
Getting word they're anticipating maybe a restart within the next 3 minutes. You can see they've got the crossbow up in the back of the flatbed, so the cleanup going relatively quickly here. Interesting, in everything that unfolded, Michael Dinan, if you remember, had been up into the 4th spot in between Alan Brynjolfsson and Collingwood, and he now is back a couple of spots behind Mark Clennon as well. So
there was a lot of shuffling that went on with the carnage that ensued with the initial problem with Buford going straight, and then everyone stacking up a little bit, and then obviously Nikolai's big crash.
For Mark Clennon, who really hasn't, he did not run at Circuit of the Americas. Interestingly, in this field, Cal, we were looking at it, and it dawned on us that none of the pros ran at the opening round of the Sprint X Pirelli GT4 Americas race at Circuit of the Americas. A number of the AMs did in that Sprint X format with another driver, but one of them was not Mark Clennon.
Right. You know, it's his first race of the championship season. He's just going to do the sprint side of things, not the Sprint X. And he said he really hasn't done took some time off to spend with family in the off season, so hasn't really been testing, so he's kind of doing a shakedown and is testing on the racetrack this weekend.
He said, yeah, I got to knock some rust off. I just don't want to be knocking it off with wall contact. That's not how this wants to play out here, but he's driven a pretty savvy race and finds himself now in 5th.
Yeah, that's good.
So not too shabby. And
3 McLarens in the top 10 now.
Taking a look here, Marko Radicic's, when you look at best laps, he has run a lap that is a second or more quicker than most everybody in front of him in this race. So he certainly is showing he's got some speed here. He turned a 120.6, and everybody else is in the 121s, up to the exception would be Tony Gaples, who uncorked a 120.4. That's a great lap. Tony really finding some speed at this stage. So
that's a great lap. It's within a tenth of his very established teammate Michael Cooper. So great job by Tony Gaples.
Word coming from race control, the red flag will be ending soon. Within 15 seconds or so, we expect to see the field back out and making its way around this racetrack to get ready to go racing once again here at the Pirelli GT4 Americas Streets of St. Pete, presented by CrowdStrike. And looking forward to this one going. And there we go. Safety car is underway. Now the clock will start. The minute that safety car starts to move, the clock starts. But you would think at this stage they'll just give them one lap and then we should be back to racing. So still have the better part of 7 minutes or so to settle this one out.
A lot of racing left. Spencer Bumpelli knows that, and he's got a different competitor right on his tail right now in Ian James. And you'd have to say coming into this championship season that Bumpelli and James are a couple of the championship favorites here. Now they find themselves at the front of the field in race number 1.
Fortunately, James Pesek has dropped way back, and the reason is apparently he has pulled in with some electrical gremlin issue in that car. That's unfortunate. Sporting new colors. Absolutely beautiful blue on that car, but not out at this stage.
Ian Lacey really dodged a bullet when you get another shot of that front end of that Mustang that got into the back of Jarrett Andretti, that he didn't punch a radiator or something. Pretty stout piece, that Ford Mustang GT4.
She's a bit wrinkled. All right, lights out on our safety vehicle. So back to green flag once we come around.
Well, Spencer knows where the grip is. He's been on both sides of that table. So what will he do with Ian James? Ian James also, when he had to make the moves around Gar Robinson, he knows where the grip is at. Do they both stay in the middle of the road and open up that inside lane for Gar Robinson to suddenly be down on the inside?
And then Calvert with Tony Gaples, who's showing some serious speed in that battle for the lead in the AM class. 6th overall with Brynjolfsson in that bright yellow Volt Porsche in the mix. All right, here we go. Safety vehicle is in, and Spencer wasting no time rolling into the throttle. He wanted nothing to do with the big V8s behind him. He wanted to have a margin as they came out of that turn.
He did. Ian tried to go with him, had a little twitch there, try to get the power down there. You see the lights flashing on that McLaren. Everyone pretty much on the normal racing line there, so no opportunity for a move. There's Tony Gaples in the second of those Black Dog Speed Shops. McLaren's looking really racy here today. It's great to see him right in the mix, putting the pressure back on Preston Calvert.
And then Brynjolfsson right there. Something dragging
damage
from
on the back end, yeah.
Oh, and Brynjolfsson looks to the inside. Gaples goes over, and you might think that was in reaction. I'm sure Tony's argument would be, no, I was trying to make a move on Calvert. But Brynjolfsson stuffs it down the inside, Cal. Beautiful move.
That really was. I think Tony is trying to set up Preston, but Alan just filled that spot immediately, just showing his racing prowess. Now he looks to the inside of Preston. That's going to be tough to make that happen there. Really tight corner on this backstretch.
Now this long run here up into the kink. And the back of that McLaren, I don't know if there's damage at this stage. Oh, and Brynjolfsson, big surprise move.
Oh, he's not going to get us. Yes, he does. Wow. Great release of the brakes there. I thought he was going to end up in the wall there. Just keeps it together. Preston comes back at him. Tony tries to go through as well. He's a bit in no man's land there. There's no grip over on that side of the track.
Got up on that curb but managed to hang on to it. Meanwhile, comes under attack from Collingwood.
Look at this battle. This is great stuff. Lacey into the pit lane. Drive-through penalty for that contact. That's going to cost him big time. Probably about 25 seconds delta down pit lane to staying on the racetrack.
Yeah, that's a huge, huge downfall for him at this stage. But I'm sure he would say, yeah, I got into him. So look at this now. Calvert floats out a little wide.
Yeah.
Gaples trying to get up the inside, and Calvert just enough to cover him.
Now he's offline. He's out of rhythm. Tony needs to set him up. Collingwood looking pretty racy as well.
Here he comes.
Preston defends. Good racing here. He's out wide again. Dirt track in that Panos around this racetrack.
Definitely
He's
feeling
still wide.
He's off. Yeah, he's really out of rhythm, isn't he?
The trouble is when you get out wide, we can't see it, but he's probably picking up the marbles and losing grip corner by corner until he can get through a fast stretch and try and grind that marbles off the race tire.
You can see the margin Brynjolfsson has opened up in front, just driving away as this battle continues. Now Tony going to try it down into turn 10. Calvert going to try and defend on it. And
watch behind.
Oh, yeah.
Collingwood gets a big run. They pretty much parked at apex there.
The problem is you got to funnel through this sequence, 11 and 12, and Clennon is right up there and joining that battle as well.
Radicic as well. You said he's got more pace than the group in front of him. Can he make it stick in that black BMW?
Now we've got 6 minutes left in this one. There's Brynjolfsson with a big lead in Am. So the battle now, Calvert in the red, white, and blue Panos, chased hard by Gaples in the Black Dog Speed Shop. McLaren, that piece of debris on the back of his car finally snaps loose.
Probably a good thing, because the way that thing was winging around, I was concerned it could find itself underneath one of his rear wheels in the tighter section at low speed. Now really putting the pressure on Preston. Preston's allowed to do that. There's that big bump there as you come through turn 3. Preston feeling the pressure. He's offline a lot of the times through this section right now. Tony's got to be patient. A little bit of smoke at the rear. I think some of that bodywork may be rubbing on that left rear tire of that McLaren.
But Tony is working every conceivable angle to try and get Preston to make that little bobble so he can sneak
He's super
through.
shallow there. He's being super defensive. Look how he's packed all of these cars up together.
Here's that kink. And again, Calvert right down the middle of the track. Here comes Radicic to the inside of Clennon. He's
nice
through.
Move.
Yes.
Tony looked like he's trying to square off the exit there and get a run on Preston, but nowhere to go with it.
Marco Radicic, he's a driver. He spends a lot of time working that car on used tires. He said, I want a car that's really stout at the end of the race. That's when he goes for setup, and it may be paying some dividends now.
Tony Gaples' car looks really good. I think they've finally found the sweet spot with that McLaren here this weekend. And his car is hooked up. He's really hugging those apexes really nicely. I think his car is stronger than Preston. Here we see Frank Gannett having a big move down the inside on Jason Bell. Gets it a little bit wrong. Goes straight, has to give it up.
Hitting those slick little bits of paint way down to the inside of the corner. Comes right out in front of Jade Buford. By the way, we just had a great piece of news. Nikolai Elgahanian going to medical to get looked at, but under his own power, awake, alert, and that's good news indeed. But boy, Preston is really missing his marks a bit, isn't he?
Great discipline by Tony Gaples in not forcing the issue. Preston's feeling the heat from behind, but hanging on. Clock is winding down, under 4 minutes to go. Really surprised that Jay Buford hasn't driven through this field a little bit better, so I'm not sure if he's got some kind of issue with that 41 machine, still buried down in the 15th position. Tony to the inside.
This time he's there, I think. Oh, side by side. Oh, and a little touch. But Gaples through into second now in the AM category. Calvert to third, and Radicic jumps into it, and he'll start attacking immediately as well.
I think Tony should be able to drive away a little bit from this group. His cars look really hooked up. He's doing a great job. Calvert got a warning there for being reactive to some of the moves that Tony is making on him, just saying that he was blocking a little bit too much. No penalty right now, but he's got to clean it up a little bit with 2 or 3 laps to go.
Radicic looked to the inside, but again, he's pretty savvy, and he just opened the wheel up, so I don't want to get down too much happening on those paint stripes way to the inside. How about this grab now at the sharp end? Pompelli James, you talked about the experience around Gar Robinson, not phasing him at all.
No, he's loving this. I like this boy, son of George Robinson, who raced for many years very successfully, has always run a great operation. A lot of experience with that team, as well as Ian James wants a little bit more. All of these drivers are in it for the full season championship, so this is big time points here on the board today.
Boy, did you see that TRG Porsche just dancing on the brakes down into turn 10? Spencer is giving it a ride right now, and he has to. He's got Ian James right behind him. James
Big
really
run.
good out of here, isn't he?
He's really good off that corner. And Spencer makes that move. He's allowed to do that. He's not reacting to a move from behind, side by side, but now he's on the inside of the road. Can he pick up the grip? Ian takes it in super deep. He's going to swing out wide. Can he hold the line? No, Spencer takes it back.
Ian almost floated wide enough to let Gar show a nose. Not quite.
We're going to see 2 laps to go, so Ian's just trying to figure out how can he make that move on Pompelli.
He's exploring, isn't he? Where will it work? What can I do?
It's a game of chess at this stage of the game between 2 of the best.
Yeah, and Ian also has to be mindful of, if I get something a little wrong, Gar can just stuff it up the inside too.
His car looks really strong on this long run now.
Yes, it does. Anticipating, as you said, Cal, white flag when they come by start-finish. Now you can see Cooper in the background, a bit lonely at this stage, has dropped off this group.
Panos is really hooked up. I was concerned that Ian James trying to get to the front and maybe used up a bit of his tire, but it doesn't seem to be the case. Spencer's hanging on for dear life right now. Hops that curve a little bit, floating that inside front wheel.
Here we
Ian
go.
James, he's just going to try and get on the power early, really put the pressure on Spencer. Spencer will have to defend. There he goes.
Spencer had to do that a bit sooner this time, and James went with him. Now James with the run down to the way inside. This is going to be a braking duel, and look at Spencer going, I know there's grip out here. He's going to try and come down underneath, but Ian James so savvy, Cal.
Beautiful.
Put
Great
that car.
control. Big move by Spencer. Try to get out wide and get on the power early, but Ian just slowed it down perfectly. Gar Robinson was just sitting in the wings, trying to take advantage of any misstep by the 2 leaders.
I'll tell you, Ian James, that savvy you're talking about, Cal, he said, where would I go if I'm in Spencer's position? That's where he exited that corner.
Well, even with the amount of experience that's on the shoulders of both those 2 leaders, they still learn a lot in race conditions. And that brake zone, as we said, was going to be tricky all day long.
All right, last time out of turn 9, heading toward this high-speed kink, 9A. And then a very, very hard braking zone here into turn 10. Boy, Gar's rolling some speed there.
He really is. What an opening round draw championship.
Oh, fantastic. And Spencer not as quick through 10 as Ian James. So here we go. Last corner onto the front straight. Ian James, after struggling last year here at St. Pete, comes through and wins round 1 of the Pirelli GT4 American National Sprint Championship. Spencer Pompelli second, Gar Robinson third. Here comes Michael Cooper in his debut as a McLaren factory driver with Black Dog. And then here comes Alan Brynjolfsson. Look at the margin. He had a great run to the win in the M category, but look at Tony Gaples and Radicic, maybe not done yet with Preston Calvert. I think he's quite close enough, so Preston will hang on for third. But Marco Radicic, what a fight through the field.
That was awesome. What a race. Just great
fantastic
battles throughout the field. Unfortunate for Nikolai Algahanian. We hope that he's okay and can come and bounce back here tomorrow, maybe in a spare car, but nonetheless, a great battle up front. What a battle it was there. Ian James, it was a mega move that he put, just controlled it perfectly. Spencer just swung out wide. I think he was thinking that Ian couldn't control it down on the inside, but Ian had been through that situation before and used that experience to make it stick.
I really need to give another shout out to Tony Gaples, who a big change for an AM driver moving from a platform like the Camaro to this McLaren. Last lap, Cal, he ran a lap at a 1:21.0. It was over a second faster than anybody else around him.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yep. That was
He loves his racing. 20th year World Challenge competition, and he just seems to get better.
Tony was feeling it. Fantastic. What a race. And for Brynjolfsson, remember, he had been at the front, dropped back a little bit, never lost his composure. When it went back to green, found a way quickly to get through. After the incident with Andretti, found a way back around Calvert and parlayed that into another win. And you consider he had an overall win with his teammate Trent Hinman at Circuit of the Americas. Doesn't apply in terms of points, but he's off to an impressive start to 2019.
Yeah, and I think they really like that car. The Cayman's a lot more consistent, a lot more comfortable, and it's a lot more coachable, because Trent said last year's car, it was tricky to drive, so for me to give feedback to Alan on what to do, he said, I was having to drive it differently every lap, so how do I relate that to someone who doesn't have the experience that I have? He said, this car is a lot more coachable.
Yeah, talking with Spencer, he said, you know, one of the main things that he's noticed is, he said, it's just got a little bit more of a power curve down low, and he said, so it just makes it a little bit more drivable. Look at that, the crew giving Ian James the "we're not worthy" the signal. That was fantastic. Yeah, just a savvy drive to the win. Making their way down into pit lane. Let's give you an idea right now. Unofficially, it is Ian James in the Panos over Pompelli in the Porsche, Robinson in the Camaro, Cooper in the McLaren. Top four, all pro drivers, 4 different manufacturers. Brynjolfsson finishes 5th overall. That is another different chassis. No, it's not. It's a Porsche, so that still keeps that in line. But Brynjolfsson over Gaples, Calvert, Radisic, and Collingwood in the AM category. And throughout, we just had some absolutely fascinating battles. And there's Ian James crawling out of that Panos Avezzano GT. A sharp-looking car, a great-sounding car, and a well-driven car. So an absolutely fantastic race here. Round 1 of the Pirelli GT4 America's Sprint Championship, Cal. Doubleheader weekend. We get to see him do it again tomorrow. I can't wait based on this.
That was a taste of things to come, because that was spectacular.
It's going to be absolutely great. We hope Nikolai Elgahanian is up to it, and that team has the ability to get another car or fix that one on the track. It's going to be amazing. And we want to remind you, don't go too far away. TC America is racing coming up next from St. Pete.